"Miss, can you buy me something to eat?" Jade Sterling stopped abruptly in the middle of the gravel path, her stiletto skidding slightly on the loose pebbles. Her hands, which seconds before had been frantically typing on her phone, answering emails about the merger of two subsidiaries, froze over the screen. For a moment, she was sure she had imagined that sweet, polite voice. But when she looked up from the illuminated screen, she saw a girl with messy brown hair, wearing a faded pink t-shirt and denim shorts that seemed too big for her tiny frame. Large, dark eyes stared up at her with a mixture of hope and shyness that made something strange happen in Jade's chest. A pang she hadn't felt in years. "Sorry to bother you," the child continued, her small hands nervously fiddling with the hem of her shirt. "It's just that I'm hungry and I saw you look. You look like a good person." Jade blinked several times as if trying to adjust a camera's focus. She was there, in Willow Creek Municipal Park, the same small Pennsylvania town where she had spent 4 years studying business administration. She had only returned for a meeting with local suppliers of natural ingredients for her Viridian Naturals cosmetic line, a business trip that was supposed to last 48 hours at most. But something about that place made her want to walk slowly, breathe the air that smelled of blooming dogwood, and remember the days when she used to sit on those same concrete benches to study late. That's why she had decided to take a walk in the park before heading back to the hotel, taking the opportunity to reply to some urgent messages. And now she was there, facing a child who couldn't have been more than 8 years old, asking for food. "What's your name?" Jade asked, putting her Italian leather purse back into her bag. "Clara." The girl smiled shyly, revealing a slightly crooked front tooth. "And yours?" "Jade." She knelt down to be at the child's height, noticing how Clara seemed even smaller up close. "Where are your parents, Clara?" The girl's smile wavered for a fraction of a second, but she quickly composed herself. "My mom she's working. I can pay you back later, I swear. Or you can deduct it from my meal tomorrow." There was something in the way Clara spoke, the politeness mixed with the maturity that shouldn't exist in a child of that age, that touched Jade in an inexplicable way. For years, her life had been a sequence of executive meetings, strategic decisions, and numbers that turned into more zeros in her bank account. When was the last time someone had asked for her help so directly and honestly? "How about we go to that diner over there?" Jade pointed to the small family restaurant across the street, with its colorful outdoor tables. "You must be really hungry." Clara's eyes lit up in a way that made Jade feel something she had forgotten existed. The sensation of making a difference in someone's life, not through marketing strategies or corporate social responsibility, but simply by being present at the right moment. "Really?" Clara gave a little jump. "You're not joking with me?" "I'm serious, let's go." As they walked side by side, Jade adjusting her pace to match Clara's short legs, the businesswoman couldn't help but observe the girl. There was something familiar in those delicate features, in the way she walked with her hands behind her back as if she were always bracing herself for disappointment. And for the first time in many years, Jade Sterling wasn't thinking about schedules, quarterly goals, or expansion strategies. She was completely present, walking beside a stranger who somehow didn't seem like a stranger at all. What she didn't know was that this chance encounter in a town park, where she had left her youthful dreams behind, was about to change not only that afternoon, but her entire life. The Willow Creek Diner was exactly as Jade remembered. Faded blue walls, the smell of frying oil mixed with homemade seasoning, and that welcoming feeling of someone about to eat something made with care. Clara chose a table near the window and sat down carefully, as if the simple act of occupying that space was a privilege she didn't want to waste. "You can order whatever you want," Jade said, watching as the girl's eyes scanned the laminated menu with almost scientific concentration. "Anything at all?" Clara looked up, her eyes shining with contained expectation. "Anything." The girl bit her lower lip, clearly battling internally between desire and caution. Then, "Can I get a combo plate, with rice, beans, French fries, and—" She hesitated. "And a piece of chicken?" The simplicity of the request, and the reverent way Clara made it, tugged at something in Jade's chest. When was the last time she had felt such gratitude for something as basic as a meal? "Of course, and to drink?" "Water is fine." Clara straightened up in the plastic chair. "Thank you, Miss Jade. You're very kind." Before Jade could respond, A familiar male voice echoed through the restaurant. Jade? Jade Sterling? She turned and had to make an effort not to show surprise. Walking towards her, with a restaurant apron tied around his waist and a look of disbelief on his face, was Milo Vance, her college classmate, owner of an easy smile and an unrequited crush he had never hidden very well. Milo, Jade stood up, allowing a quick hug. You work here? Actually, I'm the manager. He laughed, running a hand through his hair, which now had gray strands at the temples. I bought the place from Mrs. Albright about 3 years ago. And you? What brings you back to Willow Creek? Work, meeting with suppliers. Jade sat back down, noticing how Clara watched their interaction with silent curiosity. Clara, this is Milo, an old friend. Milo, Clara. Hi, Clara. Milo waved at the girl with genuine kindness. First time I've seen you around here, visiting town? Clara exchanged a quick glance with Jade as if asking permission to answer. No, I live here. It's just that... She lowered her voice. I don't usually come to restaurants. There was something in the way she said that made Milo frown slightly. Jade realized he was about to ask more questions when one of the employees appeared at the kitchen door, gesturing urgently. Excuse us, folks. Kitchen emergency. Milo hurried away, but before he was completely out of sight, he called out, Jade, don't leave without us catching up properly. Clara waited until he disappeared to lean across the table. He seems nice? Did you two date in college? The direct question made Jade laugh, the first genuine laugh she'd had in weeks. No, we never dated, but he wanted to. She studied the girl's face. You're very sharp for your... How old are you anyway? 8. I'll be 9 in December. Clara played with the paper napkin. And you? How old are you? 32. Wow, you're much younger than I thought. I thought you were like 40. Jade nearly choked on her sip of water. Thanks for the brutal honesty, Clara. Sorry. The girl blushed. It's just that you have this way about you, like an important person, you know? Like you're used to being in charge of everything. It was a surprisingly insightful observation coming from an 8-year-old. Jade wondered what kind of life experiences had taught Clara to read people so accurately. Clara's plate arrived a few minutes later, brought by a friendly waitress who clearly had known Milo for a long time. The girl ate with an appetite that confirmed she was truly hungry, but without rushing, savoring each mouthful as one who knew how to appreciate a good meal. Is it good? Jade asked. Very. Clara smiled with her mouth full. The seasoning is similar to what my mom used to make. Used to? The girl stopped chewing for a moment as if realizing what she had said. Makes, she corrected quickly. What my mom makes when she's home. But there was something in her tone, an almost imperceptible melancholy, that made Jade feel there was more to the story than Clara was willing to tell. And for the first time in years, she found herself genuinely curious about another person's life, not out of professional or strategic interest, but from a human impulse she had forgotten she possessed. When Clara finished eating, Jade realized almost an hour had passed. Her phone was full of missed calls and urgent messages, but she found she didn't care as much as she should have. I need to go to the bathroom, Clara said, getting up from the table. I'll be right back. Jade watched her walk away, noticing again how the girl moved carefully, as if always trying not to draw too much attention to herself. It was then that her phone rang, displaying the name of Marcus Thorne, her company's CFO. She answered on the second ring, knowing it was about the crisis she'd been trying to solve for weeks. Jade, we need to talk urgently about the situation with the South Korean investors. They're threatening to cancel everything if we don't resolve the supplier issue by Friday. Marcus's voice was tense, loaded with the pressure she knew so well. Suddenly, Jade found herself transported back to her world of impossible deadlines and multi-million-dollar consequences. And it was exactly at that moment that Clara chose to disappear. Marcus, you don't understand. It's not just a matter of timeline. It's a matter of brand integrity. If we start cutting corners on organic suppliers, we'll lose all the credibility we've built in the last 5 years. Jade paced back and forth on the sidewalk in front of the diner, her phone glued to her ear. Irritation grew with every word from Marcus, who insisted on solutions that compromised the fundamental values of the company she had built from scratch. Jade, be realistic. We're talking about $20 million in investment. If we lose that now, we might have to lay off 40 people by the end of the year. And if we accept suppliers who use pesticides, we'll have to lay off many more when our reputation goes down the drain." She stopped abruptly, realizing her voice had become louder than she intended. Some people on the street turned to look at her. It was then that she remembered Clara. Jade looked at the diner door, expecting to see the girl walking back to the table, but there was no sign of her. She began counting mentally. How long had it been since Clara went to the bathroom? 5 minutes? 10? "Marcus, I have to hang up. We'll sort this out tomorrow." "Jade, it can't be tomorrow. The Koreans—" She hung up and practically ran back into the restaurant. The table where they had been sitting still had Clara's plates, the crumpled napkin, and the half-empty glass of water. Jade checked the ladies' room, knocking on the door and calling the girl's name. Nothing. Milo appeared beside her, noticing her worried expression. "Everything all right? You look—" "Clara, the girl who was with me. Did you see her leave?" "No, but I was in the kitchen dealing with an oven problem." He frowned. "She's gone?" Jade went out of the restaurant again, her eyes scanning the street in both directions. Willow Creek was a small town, but for an 8-year-old, anywhere could be too far. What if something had happened to Clara while she was distracted by a work call? "Do you know this girl?" she asked when Milo followed her outside. "Clara?" He shook his head slowly. "The name sounds familiar, but I can't—" "Wait." Milo paused, as if a memory was trying to form. Clara. Jade didn't wait for him to finish remembering. She walked quickly down Main Street, entering the bakery, the pharmacy, asking if anyone had seen a girl with brown hair, a faded pink t-shirt. Most people shook their heads sympathetically, but with no useful information. It was at the 5th shop, a small sweet shop that smelled of homemade brownies, that she found a clue. "Oh yes, little Clara," said Mrs. Finch, the elderly owner. "She ran past here about 15 minutes ago. Seemed hurried or scared. Hard to say. Which way did she go?" "Towards the town square, but, dear," Mrs. Finch gently touched Jade's arm, "you don't need to worry so much. Clara is a smart girl. She knows the whole town. You know her well?" Mrs. Finch's expression became more serious. "I've known Clara since she's been on her own. She's a very polite child, but very reserved. She sometimes shows up here, especially when she's hungry." "On her own?" Jade's heart quickened. "What do you mean, on her own?" But before Mrs. Finch could answer, Jade heard someone calling her name. It was Milo, running down the sidewalk with an expression of someone who had finally remembered something important. "Jade, I need to tell you something about Clara." They met in the middle of the street, Jade breathless from running and worry, Milo with a tense face. "I remembered where I know her name from," he said, lowering his voice. "Clara is Erica's daughter. Erica Bellwether." The name hit Jade like a punch to the stomach. Erica Bellwether. Her roommate during the last 2 years of college. The shy girl who dreamed of being a teacher. Who made the best creamy cheese rice in the world. Who always said that one day she wanted to have a daughter to teach everything she had learned from her own mother. "Erica has a daughter?" Jade whispered, the pieces of the puzzle beginning to fit into her mind. The familiarity she had felt looking at Clara, the way the girl had spoken of her mother in the past tense before correcting herself. "Jade," Milo hesitated, as if searching for the right words. "Erica died 2 years ago. Bus accident on the highway." The world seemed to stop around Jade. People kept walking, cars passing, but everything seemed to be happening in slow motion. Erica was dead. And Clara, that 8-year-old girl who had asked for a meal with such politeness and gratitude, was her old friend's daughter. "And her father?" she managed to ask. "Raphael Hayes. Remember him? Also from our class." Milo shook his head in disapproval. "He disappeared right after the funeral, left Clara with an aunt who couldn't take care of her. Since then, she's been living how?" Jade's voice came out stronger than she intended. "In temporary shelters, foster homes, sometimes with families who offer to help for a few weeks." Milo sighed. "It's a complicated situation. Clara is a good girl, but the system, you know how it is." Jade didn't know how it was. During all those years building her business empire, living in luxury penthouses and traveling first class, she had never stopped to think about children like Clara. Children who lost their mothers and were abandoned by their fathers. Children who had to ask strangers for food in parks. And now Clara had disappeared. Possibly scared by the tense call Jade had taken, by the sudden change in mood, by the reminder that important people always had more important things to do than care for orphaned girls. "We need to find her," Jade said, determination replacing the shock. Now. Jade and Milo ran through the streets of Willow Creek as if they were once again the 20-year-old college students they used to be. The difference was that now they weren't running from a difficult exam, but looking for a lost child who carried the face of the best friend Jade had ever had. "She usually goes to the abandoned school when she wants to be alone," Milo shouted as they turned the corner onto Palm Street. "It's out back, there's a courtyard with broken swings." Jade followed him, her high heels hindering her run. How stupid she had been to come to the countryside in high heels and executive attire. 2 hours ago, her biggest concern was whether local suppliers could meet the delivery deadline. Now all that mattered was finding Clara. "Milo, tell me more about Erica," she asked, breathless. "How was she in recent years?" He slowed his pace, allowing her to catch up. "She never finished college. Got pregnant in her 3rd year, and Raphael? Well, he initially acknowledged paternity, but he didn't take responsibility." "What do you mean?" "They lived together for a while, but Raphael was always ambitious. When he got a job at a company in Pittsburgh, he said he'd come back for Erica and Clara. That was 4 years ago." Jade felt a lump in her throat. Erica had always been in love with Raphael, even when he showed interest in other girls. During college, Jade had tried to warn her friend about his unstable character, but Erica believed that love could change anyone. And she raised Clara alone? She worked as a waitress at Mr. Miller's bar, did some cleaning gigs on weekends. Milo stopped in front of the abandoned school. "She was an amazing mother, you know. Clara was the most polite and happy girl you ever saw, even with all the difficulties." They entered the school grounds through a hole in the fence. The place had a melancholic air, with peeling paint on the walls and weeds growing among the stones in the courtyard. But there was something magical too, as if the laughter of children still echoed through the empty halls. "Clara!" Jade shouted. "Clara, it's me, Jade!" Her voice echoed through the silent courtyard. They walked to the back, where there actually were some rusty swings hanging from a large tree. And there she was. Clara was sitting on one of the swings, swaying slowly, her small feet barely touching the ground. When she saw Jade approaching, she stopped swinging and lowered her head. "Sorry I left without telling you," the girl mumbled. "I thought you'd be mad at me because of the phone." Jade knelt on the dirt beside the swing, not caring about her expensive clothes. "Clara, look at me." The girl slowly raised her eyes. There were tears in the corners, but also a resignation that shouldn't exist in an 8-year-old. "I'm not mad at you. I'm worried. I thought you might have gotten hurt or that I had disappeared forever," Clara completed in a small voice. "Everyone always disappears, Aunt Jade. It's better if I disappear first." Jade's heart broke. She held out her hand, and Clara took it hesitantly. "Your mother's name was Erica, wasn't it?" Clara nodded, tears now flowing freely. "Did Uncle Milo tell you?" "He did, and you know what? I knew your mother. We were friends in college." Clara's eyes widened. "Really? You knew my mom?" "Yes, I did. She made the best creamy cheese rice in the world. And she always said that when she had a daughter, she would teach her all the secrets of the recipe." Clara smiled for the first time since Jade had found her. "She did teach me. I know how to make it exactly the same. Even how much cheese to put in." Jade felt such a strong wave of emotion that she had to swallow back tears. "She talked about you, Clara. Even before you were born, she already said you would be the most important thing in her life." "Really?" Clara's voice was pure hope. "Really. And I'm sure wherever she is now, she's very proud of the polite and brave girl you've become." Clara got off the swing and, to Jade's surprise, hugged her tightly. It was a needy, desperate hug from someone who hadn't received affection in a long time. "Aunt Jade, do you think my mom would be mad if I liked you?" The question was like a punch to Jade's stomach. "Why would you think she'd be mad?" "Because I shouldn't like someone I just met this much, but it's just that you remind me of her. Not your face, but the way you're so kind." Jade closed her eyes, trying to process the intensity of the moment. In just a few hours, her life had been turned upside down. And now, Hugging that child who was her best friend's daughter from college, she knew nothing would be the same. "Clara, how about we go to the hotel? You can teach me how to make your mom's creamy rice. You have a kitchen at the hotel? We'll figure it out." Jade smiled. "And tomorrow, we'll talk about what we're going to do from now on." Because one thing Jade knew for sure, she wasn't going to let Clara disappear from her life. The hotel room felt different with Clara inside. The executive suite, with its neutral colors and minimalist furniture, came alive when the girl sat on the leather armchair and began to swing her legs, observing everything with curiosity. "Wow, what a big bed," Clara exclaimed. "Like 5 people could fit in there." Jade smiled, picking up the phone. "I'll call reception, see if they can get us a portable cooktop or at least an electric stove." Half an hour later, 2 hotel employees came up with a portable cooktop, a pan, some basic utensils, and the ingredients Jade had asked for: rice, milk, mozzarella cheese, and a little butter. "The manager said it's complimentary," one of the young men explained. She was curious about the special recipe. When they were alone, Clara took charge. "First, we wash the rice very well. My mom said that's the secret to everything working out." Jade watched fascinated as the 8-year-old girl transformed. Shyness gave way to natural confidence, as if cooking was the language she mastered better than any other. "Now put a little oil in the pan, not too much, or it gets heavy." Clara supervised Jade's every move. "That's it. Now toss in the rice and stir well until it's sort of transparent." "Did your mom teach you this when you were little?" "Always. She said a woman needs to know how to cook to take care of those she loves." Clara paused. "And that cooking with love makes food taste better." Jade stirred the rice, thinking about how different her own childhood had been. Housekeepers, catered meals, a mother always too busy with social events to teach family recipes. "Now add the hot water. It has to be hot, okay? Otherwise the rice will be hard." They worked in silence for a few minutes, Clara giving precise instructions while Jade obeyed like a dedicated apprentice. There was something therapeutic in that process, in the simplicity of just cooking alongside a child who treated each step as if it were sacred. "Aunt Jade, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you come back here, to Willow Creek?" Jade thought about the answer. The official version was business meetings, suppliers, market expansion. But looking at Clara, stirring the rice that was starting to soften, she felt like being honest. "I think I was trying to remember who I was before I became who I am today." "And who were you?" "A girl who dreamed of making a difference in the world, who believed that people were more important than money." Jade chuckled softly. "Sounds silly, doesn't it?" "No, it doesn't. My mom always said our dreams never die. They just sleep sometimes." The wisdom of that child was impressive. Jade wondered how many deep conversations Clara had had with Erica, how many life lessons had been passed down during simple moments like that. "Now add the milk." Slowly, stirring constantly. The rice began to get creamy, releasing an aroma that brought back vivid memories of college days. Erica making that same recipe on weekends, insisting that Jade try it, saying that one day she would make it for her own children. Last part, the cheese. My mom said it had to be just right. Not too little, not too much. Clara measured the grated cheese with her small hands, adding it little by little. Done. Now just stir until it melts and season with salt. When the dish was ready, they sat on the suite's sofa, Clara with a plate on her lap and Jade with another. The first spoonful brought tears to Jade's eyes. It was exactly as she remembered. It tasted of home, of friendship, of simpler times. "Is it just like my mom's?" Clara asked anxiously. "It's perfect. She would be very proud." Clara smiled and continued eating. After a few minutes, she spoke without looking up from her plate. "Aunt Jade, are you leaving tomorrow?" The question Jade had been avoiding. Her flight was scheduled for the next afternoon. Marcus would be waiting for an answer about the Korean investors. There was a board meeting on Monday. But looking at Clara, seeing how the girl tried to hide the expectation on her face, Jade made a decision that would change everything. "I don't know yet. Maybe I'll stay a few more days." Clara's eyes lit up, but she tried to contain her hope. "Really? But what about your work?" "Work has always been there. It always will be." Jade set down her plate and looked directly at Clara. "But you're unique. And I think your mom would want me to take care of you for a while. Clara stopped eating completely. You want to stay with me? If you want me to. The girl didn't answer with words. She simply threw herself into Jade's arms, knocking over the plate in the process, but neither of them cared. It was the hug of someone who had finally found a safe haven. And it was in that moment that Jade knew. Her life as she knew it was over. A new one was beginning. The next morning, Jade woke up with Clara sleeping beside her in the big hotel bed. The girl had curled up like a kitten, her hair spread on the pillow, a peaceful expression on her face that Jade hadn't seen the day before. It was as if, for the first time in a long time, Clara had slept without fear. Jade got up silently and went to the balcony, her phone already full of messages. Marcus had sent 5 emails overnight, each more urgent than the last. The board wanted a video conference at 9 in the morning. The Korean investors were losing patience. For a moment, the old Jade resurfaced. The executive who always put the company first, who solved crises even before breakfast. But then she looked back and saw Clara stirring in bed, still asleep, and something shifted in her chest. "Good morning," Clara mumbled, rubbing her eyes. "Are you going to work already?" "No," Jade replied, putting away her phone. "Today is Saturday. A day not to work." "Really? But yesterday you seemed so worried about the phone." Jade went back to bed and sat beside Clara. "Sometimes we worry about things that aren't as important as we think." Clara sat up, her messy hair creating a funny halo around her head. "My mom always said that. That work was important, but that I was more important. Your mom was very wise. Aunt Jade, can I ask you something?" "Always." "If you stay a few more days, where will I sleep? Because I don't have a home now." The simple question carried a complex reality that Jade was still trying to understand. "Where have you been sleeping?" "It depends. Sometimes Mrs. Olson lets me stay at her house. Sometimes I stay at the city shelter. And when there's no place..." Clara hesitated. "When there's no place, what?" "I sleep at the abandoned school. There's a covered spot and it's safe." Jade's heart ached. An 8-year-old child sleeping in an abandoned school. How had the system failed Clara so badly? "Well, while I'm here, you'll stay with me, and we'll see what we can do to get you a permanent place." Clara smiled, but there was caution in her eyes. "You won't give up on me when you find out I'm trouble?" "Why would you be trouble?" "Because all the families who tried to help me said that I was too polite, that I made them feel guilty, or that I was too quiet, that I didn't seem like a normal child." Jade felt a mixture of anger and sadness. How could adults make a child feel guilty for being polite and resilient? "Clara, look at me." She took the girl's small hands. "You are not a problem for anyone. You are a gift." "Really? Really? And you know what we're going to do today? We're going to buy you new clothes. And maybe some toys. But I know you don't need them. But I want to." "When was the last time someone bought something special just for you?" Clara thought for a long moment. "On my 6th birthday, my mom bought me a doll. She saved for months. And where is that doll? It got lost when I moved from the Pittsburgh shelter here. They said I could only bring one backpack." Jade closed her eyes for a moment, trying to control her emotion. When she opened them, her determination was stronger than ever. "Then today, we're going to buy a new doll. And anything else you want." They left the hotel hand in hand, Clara wearing the same clothes from the day before. The town was slowly waking up, shops opening, people walking the streets, with the typical tranquility of the countryside. At the first children's clothing store, Jade watched Clara choose with extreme care. The girl picked up each item, looked at the price, and put it back. "Clara, you don't have to look at the price." "But my mom always looked. She said we should only choose what was necessary." "Today is different. Today you can choose what makes you happy." It took half an hour of encouragement until Clara finally chose a yellow dress with small flowers, 2 blouses, a pair of denim jeans, and new sneakers. When she looked in the mirror, her smile lit up the entire store. "Do I look pretty?" she asked, twirling so the dress would fly. "You look beautiful," Jade replied, and wanted to say more. That she was seeing Erica in that smile. That she was feeling a love she didn't know she was capable of feeling. At the toy store, Clara fell in love with a curly-haired doll that looked like her. Jade also bought coloring books, colored pencils, and a teddy bear that Clara immediately hugged. "Can I give him a name?" Clara asked. "Of course. Hope. I'll call him Hope." When they returned to the hotel laden with bags, Clara was radiant. Jade watched her organize her new things with the care of someone who had never had much and knew she had made the right decision. Her phone rang. It was Marcus again. This time, Jade answered. "Marcus, I'm staying here for another week. Cancel the Monday meeting." "Jade, you can't." "Yes, I can. And I can do much more than you imagine." When she hung up, Clara was looking at her with admiration. "You're very brave," the girl said. "I'm learning to be," Jade replied. "With a very special teacher." A week passed like a dream. Jade had extended her stay at the hotel, and each day her connection with Clara deepened. In the morning, they had breakfast together on the room's balcony. In the afternoon, they walked through town or visited the park where it all began. At night, Clara drew while Jade worked on her laptop, both in comfortable silence. It was on a sunny Thursday that everything changed. Jade and Clara were in the town square, sitting on the bench near the fountain, when Clara suddenly tensed beside her. "Aunt Jade," the girl whispered, her voice filled with tension. "That man over there, he's my dad." Jade followed Clara's gaze and saw a tall man with dark hair and broad shoulders walking towards them. Raphael Hayes. Even after so many years, she recognized him immediately. He looked more mature, wore a neatly pressed dress shirt and expensive shoes, but still had that confident smile that used to charm all the girls in college. "Clara, my princess." Raphael opened his arms as he approached. "How you've grown." The girl shrank behind Jade, who instinctively put her arm around her. "Raphael," Jade said, keeping her voice neutral. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Jade Sterling." He stopped in front of them, his smile widening. "When I heard you were in town taking care of my daughter, I came immediately." "Your daughter?" Jade's voice carried a coldness she didn't know she possessed. "Where were you for the past 4 years?" Raphael ran a hand through his hair, assuming an expression that seemed rehearsed. "I know I made mistakes. I was building a career, saving money to be able to offer Clara a better life. But now," he gestured to his expensive clothes, "now I'm in a position to be the father she deserves." Clara squeezed Jade's hand, her big eyes fixed on the man who should represent protection, but who clearly made her uncomfortable. "Clara, aren't you going to give Daddy a hug?" The girl shook her head, hiding even further behind Jade. "She's shy," Raphael laughed, but there was tension in his voice. "It's natural, but I'm sure in a few days we'll be getting to know each other better." "What exactly do you want, Raphael?" Jade asked. "I want my daughter back. I want to be a family." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "And who knows? I want to correct other mistakes from the past too." The suggestive tone in his voice reminded Jade of the brief involvement they had in their sophomore year of college, before he became interested in Erica. It had only been a few weeks, but enough for her to realize that Raphael was the type of man who saw people as stepping stones to his goals. "I don't know what you're talking about. Jade, we're adults. We had our history before Erica came between us." Raphael smiled in a way he probably found charming. "And now, with Clara uniting us again, maybe it's destiny." Jade felt disgusted. "Destiny? Raphael, you abandoned your daughter when she needed you most. Don't talk about destiny. I was young, scared, but I've matured." He tried to touch Clara's shoulder, who flinched away. "I have an apartment in Pittsburgh, a good job. I can give Clara everything she needs." "Except love," Jade murmured. "What was that?" "Nothing." Jade stood up, pulling Clara with her. "We need to go." "Wait." Raphael grabbed her arm. "That's not how things are going to work, Jade. Clara is my daughter by right. You may have money and influence, but I have the law on my side." The veiled threat made Jade stop. "What do you mean?" "I mean we can resolve this amicably, like old friends, or I can pursue my legal rights." Raphael released her arm, but the smile remained. "I prefer the first option." Clara tugged at Jade's shirt. "Aunt Jade, can we go?" "Let's go, honey." Jade took the girl's hand and started to walk away. "Jade," Raphael called after them, "think about what I said. We have a lot to talk about." Only when they reached the hotel did Jade realize she was trembling. Clara sat on the bed, hugging her teddy bear. "Hope." "Aunt Jade?" Is he going to take me away? The simple question contained all the fears of a child who had already lost too much. Jade knelt in front of her. I won't let that happen. But he's my real dad. And you're nothing to me. Clara's words carried no accusation, just a resigned sadness that broke Jade's heart. Clara, family isn't just about blood. It's about who's present, who cares, who loves. Jade held the girl's face. And I love you. It was the first time she had said those words aloud, but Jade knew they were true from the moment she found Clara in the park. I love you too, Aunt Jade. They hugged, but both knew the fight was just beginning. Raphael was back, and Jade suspected his motives went far beyond a sudden paternal impulse. The custody battle for Clara was declared. The next morning, Jade woke with steely determination. If Raphael wanted a legal battle, she would be prepared. After leaving Clara having breakfast at the hotel restaurant under the care of the receptionist, a kind woman who had been charmed by the girl, Jade headed to the office of the best family lawyer in the region. Dr. Henry Caldwell had a solid reputation and an office that inspired confidence. Jade explained the situation in detail, from Raphael's abandonment to her current involvement with Clara. The case is delicate, Dr. Caldwell admitted, adjusting his glasses. The biological father has legal rights, but the abandonment for 4 years can be used in our favor. We'll need to document everything. Where Clara was living, how she was being cared for, evidence of the abandonment. How much time do we have? Depends on how quickly he makes his moves. But I suggest we immediately begin the process for temporary custody. Jade left the office with a pile of documents and a list of witnesses who would need to be heard. Milo would be crucial, as would Mrs. Finch from the sweet shop and other people who knew Clara's situation. When she returned to the hotel, she found Clara drawing in the lobby, surrounded by sheets of paper scattered on the floor. "What are you doing, honey?" "Drawing our house," Clara replied, showing a colorful drawing of a yellow house with a garden. "When all this is over, will we live in a house like this?" The child's optimism was both touching and worrying. "Yes, we will," Jade promised, praying she could deliver. That afternoon, Raphael appeared at the hotel. "We need to talk," he said to Jade, who was with Clara by the pool. "Clara, go play in the shallow end for a few minutes," Jade asked. When the girl walked away, Raphael sat beside her at the edge of the pool. "Do you really want to do this the hard way?" he asked, his tone seemingly casual. "Do what?" "Fight me. Jade, you've always been smart. Think about it. I'm her father. Any judge will grant me custody. Any judge will consider the child's well-being. And you haven't been present for the past 4 years." Raphael laughed. "I was working, building a future. That's not abandonment, that's responsibility. Responsibility would be taking your daughter with you, or at least sending money, or calling. Details." He waved dismissively. "The important thing is that I'm in a position now." Jade studied him. There was something different about Raphael, an excessive confidence that bothered her. "What do you really want, Raphael?" He smiled, and this time he didn't try to hide his intentions. "I want my daughter. And I want you." "Me?" "Jade, you've become an impressive woman. Rich, powerful, beautiful." He leaned closer. "We can form a perfect family. Clara needs a father and a mother. We've had our chemistry in the past." His audacity left her speechless for a moment. "Are you serious?" "Completely. Think about it. Clara is happy. You get the daughter you always wanted, and I get everything I've always desired." The raw honesty of his ambitions was almost admirable in its simplicity. "And if I refuse? Then things get complicated." Raphael stood up. "I'll file for custody. I'll allege you're manipulating Clara, creating harmful emotional dependence. I'll show that a workaholic executive isn't fit to raise a child. You have no proof of that, don't I? Jade, did you forget I also went to the same college? I know people. And people talk." He smiled maliciously. "For example, remember Professor Davison? He told me an interesting story about you and your academic priorities." Jade felt a chill down her spine. Professor Davison had always held a grudge against her, especially after she rejected his inappropriate advances. "Furthermore," Raphael continued, "I'm sure your partners won't be happy when they find out you're spending company time and money on personal whims." The threat was clear. Raphael wasn't just after Clara. He was after everything Jade had built. "You have 48 hours to decide," he said, walking towards the exit. "Either we do this my way, or we do it the hard way." Clara ran back, dripping water from the pool. "Aunt Jade, has my dad left?" "Yes." "Good." Clara wrapped herself in her towel. "He makes me nervous." Jade hugged the girl, feeling the weight of responsibility. Raphael wasn't bluffing. He had a plan, resources, and apparently information he could use against her. But one thing he didn't have: Clara's true love. And Jade would discover that sometimes love was the most powerful weapon of all. That night, as Clara slept peacefully beside her, Jade picked up the phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. "Marcus, it's me. I need you to cancel all my meetings for the next 2 months. I have a war to win." The 48-hour deadline passed without Jade giving Raphael any response. On the morning of the third day, the war officially began. Dr. Caldwell called early, his voice tense. "Jade, Raphael filed a motion for reinstatement of custody. But there's more. He also filed a formal complaint alleging parental alienation." "What does that mean?" "He's claiming you're manipulating Clara against him, preventing the natural relationship between father and daughter." Jade looked at Clara, who was playing on the floor with her new doll, completely oblivious to the storm brewing around her. "And there's more," Dr. Caldwell continued. "He hired Dr. Mariana Reynolds. She's one of the best family lawyers in the state." "I see." Jade knew Raphael wasn't playing. "What do we do now?" "We need to prepare for a preliminary hearing. And Jade, he's spreading information about you in town. Nothing officially defamatory yet, but..." "What kind of information?" "That you're a cold executive, a workaholic who's using Clara as a personal project. That you never wanted children and are now having a midlife crisis." Jade closed her eyes. Raphael knew her weaknesses and was systematically attacking each one. That afternoon, when she went out to retrieve documents from the county clerk's office, Jade noticed the stares. People who used to greet her with smiles now averted their gaze or whispered as she passed. In a small town, rumors traveled fast. It was at the bakery that she faced the first direct confrontation. "Look, Jade," said Mrs. Henderson, the owner, with a tone that tried to sound gentle but carried judgment. "I don't want to butt in where I'm not asked, but that girl has suffered enough. If her father wants custody back, the father who abandoned her for 4 years, he was working, establishing himself. Men have to do that sometimes." Mrs. Henderson shook her head. "You're a businesswoman, you should understand." Jade bought her bread in silence and left, feeling the weight of judgmental stares. Raphael was being clever. He presented himself as the repentant father who had matured while painting Jade as the rich outsider trying to buy a child. That night, Clara noticed something was wrong. "Aunt Jade, are you sad?" "A little, honey." "Is it because of my dad?" Jade hesitated. How to explain the complexity of the situation to an 8-year-old? "Clara, do you want to live with your dad?" The girl was quiet for a long time, hugging her teddy bear, Hope. "He's my real dad," she finally said. But I'm afraid of him." "Afraid? Why?" "He looks at me like I'm a thing, not a person. And when he talks to me, it's like he's acting." Clara looked up at Jade. "You never act with me." The girl's perceptive observation confirmed Jade's suspicions about Raphael's true motives. "Clara, if a judge asks you where you want to live, what will you say?" "That I want to stay with you." The answer came without hesitation. "But what if he won't let me?" Before Jade could answer, her phone rang. It was Milo. "Jade, you need to come to the diner now." "What happened?" "It's about Raphael. He was here today talking to some old college classmates and, well, you better see for yourself." Jade left Clara with the receptionist and hurried to the Willow Creek diner. Milo was in the kitchen with a grim expression. "He's gathering people to testify against you," Milo said bluntly. "He offered money to some, made veiled threats to others." "What kind of threats?" "Professor Davison was here. Raphael said you were always too ambitious, and now you're trying to buy a family because you never managed to build a real one." Jade felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. "But there's more," Milo continued. "He's spreading rumors that you two had an affair in college before he got with Erica. He's implying you were always jealous of her and now you're using Clara to get revenge. That's ridiculous." "I know. But in a small town, people love good gossip. and Raphael is very convincing." Milo came closer and touched Jade's shoulder. "But not everyone is believing him. Mrs. Finch from the sweet shop came to me today. She wants to testify on your behalf. She said she saw how you treat Clara, that it's true love. And you? Jade, I knew you in college. I know who you really are, and I know how Erica talked about you, always with affection, always with gratitude." Milo smiled sadly. "She'd be happy to know you're taking care of Clara." For the first time in days, Jade felt a glimmer of hope. "Milo, I need to ask you a favor. Anything. I need you to help me find everyone who really knew Erica and Clara. People who know the truth about Raphael's abandonment. Consider it done." When Jade returned to the hotel, Clara was already asleep. She lay down beside the girl, watching her peaceful face in the dim light. The battle was just beginning, but Jade knew one thing. No matter what Raphael did, she would fight to the end for the right to protect that child. Because some wars were worth any sacrifice. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for Monday. On Saturday morning, Jade received a call that would change everything. "Jade, this is Carla Jenkins, a municipal social worker. I need to speak with you urgently." They met at a discreet diner on the outskirts of town. Carla was a middle-aged woman, with graying hair and tired eyes of someone who had seen many children suffer in the system. "I've known Clara's story since Erica died," Carla began, nervously stirring her coffee cup. "I've followed all the temporary shelters, all the placement attempts. This girl has been through things no child should ever go through." "What do you mean?" "One of the families who took her in. Let's just say they didn't have the best intentions. Fortunately, we found out in time." Carla sighed heavily. "Clara never talked about it, but I saw the marks. Not physical. They were too clever for that. But the emotional marks." Jade felt her blood run cold. "And Raphael? Did he know about this?" "That's exactly what I need to talk to you about." Carla took a folder from her bag. "Raphael came to me last week. He wanted information about Clara, medical records, shelter history. Is that normal?" "It would be, if he were a genuinely concerned father interested in his daughter's well-being. But his questions..." Carla shook her head. "He wanted to know about your financial situation, about your company, how much you were spending on Clara. He's using Clara to get to me. That's what it looks like. And there's more." Carla opened the folder. "I found this in the old files. It was a formal complaint, dated 3 years ago, made by Raphael himself. He had reported to the authorities that Clara was temporarily under third-party care because he was restructuring his career, and that he would return for her as soon as he had adequate conditions. He officially relinquished custody," Carla explained. "This document proves that the abandonment was deliberate and documented." Jade could barely believe it. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because in 15 years as a social worker, I've learned to recognize true love when I see it. And what I've seen between you and Clara this past week," Carla smiled for the first time. "It's what every child deserves to have. Would you testify about this? More than that, I will officially recommend that custody be granted to you." Jade felt a wave of relief, but Carla raised a hand. "But I need to warn you. Raphael hired a private investigator. He's digging into your life in New York, your past relationships, anything he can use against you." "What kind of things?" "I don't know yet, but I've seen this happen before. Men like Raphael don't stop until they get what they want." That afternoon, Carla's warning materialized. Jade was with Clara at the park when her phone rang. It was Marcus, and his voice was agitated. "Jade, we have a problem. The press is calling. Someone leaked information about your personal situation here in town." "What information?" "About you adopting a child, about leaving the company to play mommy. Shareholders are concerned about your emotional stability." Jade looked at Clara, who was innocently playing on the swing set. "Marcus, don't answer the press. Don't comment on anything." "Jade, I need to know. Are you really going to give up everything for this child?" Marcus's question echoed in Jade's head even after she hung up. Was she really prepared to give up everything she had built? "Aunt Jade, are you okay?" Clara had stopped playing and was watching her with concern. "I am, honey. You won't leave me, right? Even if it's hard?" Clara's simple question answered all of Jade's doubts. "Never." But that night, alone in the hotel room while Clara slept, Jade received a call that shook her certainties. It was Dr. Caldwell, and his voice was tense. "Jade, we have a serious problem. Raphael got a temporary injunction." "What does that mean?" "It means Clara will have to spend the weekend with him starting tomorrow. It's a precautionary measure until Monday's hearing." Jade looked at Clara sleeping peacefully and felt the world collapse around her. "How is that possible? He claimed you're alienating Clara against him, preventing natural contact between father and daughter. And he managed to get witnesses who confirmed that Clara has never been alone with him since you arrived. Because she's afraid of him." "I know. But legally, the father has the right to spend time with his daughter. It's temporary, Jade. Just one weekend. Just one weekend." But Jade knew it could be enough time for Raphael to plant the seeds he needed to secure permanent custody. She hung up the phone and approached the bed where Clara slept. How would she explain to an 8-year-old that she would have to spend 2 days with the man who had abandoned her and who clearly scared her? And worse, how would she ensure Clara would come back to her on Monday? Raphael had played his cruelest card, and Jade was about to find out if love would truly be enough to win this war. "I don't want to go, Aunt Jade." Clara was sitting on the edge of the bed, hugging her teddy bear, Hope, her eyes red from crying. Jade had spent the entire night trying to find a way to explain the situation without scaring the girl even more. "I know, honey, but it's only for 2 days. You'll come back to me Sunday night. What if he doesn't let me come back?" The question Jade was also asking herself but couldn't show it. "He will. It's a judge's order." Raphael arrived at the hotel promptly at 10 in the morning, accompanied by a judicial officer, a legal precaution that made everything even more traumatic. He was impeccably dressed and carried a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good morning, Princess," he said to Clara, who hid behind Jade. "I brought a surprise for you." He showed her a new tablet still in its box. "We can watch cartoons together, play games." Clara looked at the gift without enthusiasm. "Aunt Jade, can I take Hope?" "Of course you can." Raphael frowned slightly but kept his smile. "You don't need a teddy bear, Clara. You're a big girl now." "She can take whatever she wants," Jade interjected, her voice firmer than intended. The judicial officer, a kind man named Mr. Robert Sullivan, knelt down to speak with Clara. "Hi, Clara. My name is Robert. I'll be around this weekend, okay? If you need anything, just call." The officer's presence brought Jade a little relief. At least there would be a neutral witness. "Come on, Clara," Raphael said, extending his hand. "We're going to have a lot of fun." Clara looked at Jade one last time, her eyes full of silent plea. Jade knelt and hugged her tightly. "Remember what we talked about," she whispered in the girl's ear. "If anything bothers you, tell Mr. Robert, and Sunday night I'll be here waiting for you. Promise?" "Promise." Jade watched Raphael leave with Clara through the hotel door, the girl looking back until she disappeared from sight. Then she locked herself in the room and cried like she hadn't cried in years. The next 48 hours were the longest of Jade's life. She couldn't eat, couldn't work, couldn't think of anything but Clara. Dr. Caldwell tried to reassure her, but the laws were clear. She couldn't contact Clara during the visitation period. On Saturday evening, Milo appeared at the hotel with a pizza and a bottle of wine. "You need to eat something," he said, entering the room. "And you need to stop pacing back and forth like a caged lion. What if he's manipulating her? What if he's filling her head with lies about me? Clara's smart. She knows who really cares about her. But she's 8, Milo, and he's her biological father. What if she feels obligated to like him?" Milo poured 2 glasses of wine. "Jade, can I tell you something about Erica?" She nodded. When Erica found out she was pregnant, she was terrified. Not because of the pregnancy itself, but because of Raphael. She already knew what he was like, but she felt guilty for getting involved with a friend's ex. "My ex?" "Milo, it was only a few weeks." "I know, but Erica didn't know that at the time. She thought she had betrayed a friendship. And you know what she told me a few months before she died?" Jade shook her head. "That if anything happened to her, she wanted you to know she held no grudge. That you were always the best friend she ever had." Milo paused. "And that if you could take care of Clara, it would be a dream come true for her." Tears welled up in Jade's eyes again. "She really said that?" "Word for word. Erica knew Raphael wasn't fit to be a father. But she also knew that you had a huge heart beneath all that executive armor." On Sunday morning, Jade woke to her phone ringing. It was Dr. Caldwell. Jade, we have news. Raphael made a proposal. What kind of proposal? He's willing to relinquish permanent custody of Clara. Jade's heart pounded. In exchange for what? $500,000 and a board position in your company. The audacity of the proposal left Jade speechless. Raphael was literally trying to sell his own daughter. Did he say that officially? No, it was through his lawyer. Unofficially, of course, but the proposal is on the table. Jade closed her eyes. $500,000 was nothing to her, and a position in the company. Well, it would be a small price to secure Clara forever. Jade, do you want me to respond? No, she finally said. If he wants to negotiate his daughter, we'll do it in court. In front of a judge, I want everyone to see what kind of man he really is. Are you sure it would be so much simpler? I'm sure. Clara is priceless. And I want Raphael to learn that the hard way. Sunday afternoon arrived slowly. Jade had been in the hotel lobby since 5, even though she knew Clara wouldn't be back until 8. When she finally saw Raphael enter with the girl, her heart almost stopped. Clara looked smaller, more fragile. Her eyes were dull and she carried her teddy bear, Hope, as if it were her only anchor to reality. "Aunt Jade!" Clara cried, running into her arms. Jade hugged her as if she hadn't seen her in months, not hours. "How are you, honey?" "Tired," Clara murmured against her neck. "Can I sleep now?" "Of course you can." Raphael approached, still smiling. "We had a wonderful weekend. Clara and I got to know each other better." Jade looked at him over Clara's head. "Great. Now, if you'll excuse me." "Jade," Raphael lowered his voice. "I hope you thought about my proposal." "I did. And my answer is, go to hell." Raphael's smile finally disappeared. "You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is not seeing your true face 15 years ago." When they reached the room, Clara threw herself on the bed and began to cry silently. Jade lay beside her. "What happened, honey?" He said you wouldn't want to take care of me anymore after you found out something." Jade's blood ran cold. "What thing?" "That I tell lies. That I make up stories to get attention." Clara sobbed. "Is it true, Aunt Jade? Are you going to leave me?" Jade hugged Clara even tighter. "Clara, look at me. No matter what he said, no matter what anyone says, I will never leave you. Never. Promise. I promise. Tomorrow we'll go to court and show everyone who truly cares about you." But as Clara finally slept in her arms, Jade couldn't shake the feeling that Raphael still had aces up his sleeve. The real battle was about to begin. The courtroom was more crowded than Jade expected. Besides the lawyers and the parties involved, there were journalists. Raphael had managed to turn the case into a media circus about a rich executive trying to buy a poor child. Clara was sitting beside Jade, wearing the yellow dress they had bought together, holding her teddy bear, Hope, tightly. The girl seemed small and fragile in that formal environment, but her eyes held a determination that surprised everyone. Dr. Caldwell had prepared Jade for all possible scenarios, but when she saw Raphael enter the courtroom accompanied by his lawyer and 3 witnesses, including Professor Davison, she felt a chill down her spine. "All rise," announced the clerk. "The court is now in session, presided over by the Honorable Judge Dr. Charles Edward Rivers." The judge was a middle-aged man with graying hair and a serious expression. Jade tried to read something on his face, but he seemed impassive. "We are here to rule on the petition for reinstatement of custody of the minor, Clara Bellwether," the judge said. "The floor is open to the petitioner's defense." Dr. Mariana Reynolds stood up. She was an elegant woman, articulate and imposing in her presence. "Your Honor, we are here to correct an injustice. Raphael Hayes has been Clara's father for 8 years. Due to professional circumstances, he needed to be temporarily absent, but he now has the full capacity to exercise paternity." She gestured towards Jade. The respondent, on the other hand, took advantage of a vulnerable situation to create artificial bonds with the child. This is a woman with no experience with children, a workaholic, who sees Clara as a personal project. Dr. Caldwell stood up. "Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is making unsubstantiated claims." "Sustained." "Dr. Reynolds, please stick to the facts." "Of course, Your Honor. The facts are clear. Raphael Hayes never relinquished his daughter. He always maintained contact and is now in a position to offer a stable home. It was then that Raphael was called to testify. He approached the stand with confidence, wearing an impeccable suit. "Mr. Hayes, please explain to the court your absences from Clara's life," his own lawyer asked. "Your Honor, when Erica died, I was devastated. I had just gotten an important job in Pittsburgh and was building the means to bring Clara with me." Raphael wiped away a non-existent tear. "But the pain of losing my daughter's mother left me temporarily unstable. I thought it best for Clara to be in a more stable environment until I recovered." "And during that period, did you maintain contact?" "Whenever possible. I sent money, gifts, but always with the intention of regaining custody when I was better." It was a convincing performance. Raphael spoke looking directly at the judge, his voice laden with controlled emotion. When Dr. Caldwell stood for cross-examination, the atmosphere changed. "Mr. Hayes, you said you sent money. Can you present proof?" Raphael hesitated for a fraction of a second. "The receipts, they were lost in the move." "How convenient. And the gifts?" "Clara can confirm." "Doctor," Caldwell turned to Clara. "Clara, have you received gifts from your father in the last 4 years?" Clara shook her head shyly. "No, sir." "She's confused," Raphael quickly interjected. "She's a traumatized child." "Let me rephrase the question," Dr. Caldwell said, consulting his papers. "Mr. Hayes, do you know Carla Jenkins, a municipal social worker?" "Vaguely. She claims to have a document signed by you dated 3 years ago, where you formally declare yourself temporarily incapacitated to care for Clara. Do you confirm signing such a document?" Raphael's face paled. That was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding that lasted 4 years?" "Objection," cried Dr. Reynolds. "He's intimidating the witness." "Overruled," continued Dr. Caldwell. "Mr. Hayes, did you recently approach Ms. Jade Sterling with a financial proposal involving Clara's custody?" That's slander. Answer yes or no." Raphael looked at his lawyer, who gave a discreet signal. "No." It was then that Dr. Caldwell played his final card. "Your Honor, I would like to call a witness. Mr. Robert Sullivan, the judicial officer who supervised the visitation period last weekend." Mr. Sullivan approached the stand. He was a simple man, but his word was respected in court. "Mr. Sullivan, what did you observe during Raphael and Clara's visitation?" "Well, doctor, it was strange. Mr. Hayes spent most of the time on the phone making work calls. The girl was left alone watching TV most of the time." "And was there any interaction between them?" "Little. But on Sunday, I overheard a troubling conversation." The room fell silent. "Mr. Hayes told Clara that she should stop pretending she liked Ms. Sterling because soon she would find out the truth and wouldn't want a problematic child anymore." A murmur went through the room. Jade saw Raphael shift uncomfortably in his seat. "And how did Clara react?" "She started to cry and said Ms. Sterling would never abandon her." It was then that Mr. Hayes said. Mr. Sullivan hesitated. "Said what?" "That all adoptive mothers were the same, that they always gave up when things got difficult, and that it was better for her to get used to it soon." The impact of the words was immediate. Jade saw Clara shrink beside her, the memories of the weekend resurfacing. "One last question, Mr. Sullivan. In your professional opinion, based on years of experience, what did you observe about the relationship between Clara and each of the parties?" Mr. Sullivan looked directly at the judge. "Your Honor, in 15 years as a judicial officer, I've seen many custody cases. The relationship between Clara and Ms. Sterling is genuine. There's love, care, protection. As for the relationship with the biological father," he paused. "Continue." "It seems more like an obligation for both sides." When Mr. Sullivan stepped down from the stand, the silence in the room was deafening. Raphael had the expression of someone who knew his strategy had failed, but Jade also knew the battle wasn't over yet. The judge still hadn't heard the most important person of all. "Your Honor," Dr. Caldwell said, "I would like to request that Clara be heard in chambers with only your presence and the court-appointed counsel for minors." The judge looked at the girl, who was pale but determined. "Clara, would you like to talk to me?" Clara nodded, got up from her chair, and for a moment seemed much older than her 8 years. Her fate would be decided in the next few minutes. Jade watched Clara disappear through the judge's chamber door, hugging her teddy bear. Hope. The courtroom remained in tense silence as everyone waited. 15 minutes that felt like an eternity. When the doors opened again, Clara emerged with her head held high, but with red eyes. She walked directly to Jade and sat beside her, taking her hand without a word. The judge returned to his seat with a grave expression. Jade tried to decipher a clue on his face, but Dr. Charles Edward Rivers was known for his absolute impartiality. Before pronouncing the sentence, the judge said, "I would like to make some important considerations about this case." The room fell into absolute silence. During my career, I have presided over hundreds of cases involving child custody. Most are painful because they usually involve broken families where the child's well-being takes a backseat to the adult's interests. The judge paused, looking directly at Raphael and then at Jade. This case caught my attention for several aspects. First, for the emotional complexity involved. Second, because I rarely see an 8-year-old child demonstrate such clarity about her own feelings and needs. Clara squeezed Jade's hand. The conversation I had with Clara was revealing. She told me about her life over the past 4 years, about the shelters, about the temporary families, about the loneliness and fear, but she also told me about hope. The judge turned to Jade. "Ms. Sterling, Clara told me something interesting. She said that before she met you, she thought important adults always had more important things to do than care for children, but that you taught her she can be the most important thing in someone's life." Tears began to stream down Jade's face. I was also struck by the way Clara expresses herself. She is a polite, articulate child who demonstrates solid values and admirable emotional maturity. This does not happen by chance. It is the result of care, attention, and most importantly, love. The judge looked at Raphael. "Mr. Hayes, you claimed to be building conditions to take Clara back. But during our conversation, Clara reported to me that you told her that adoptive families always give up. This is not the language of someone who wants the best for a child. This is the language of someone who wants to manipulate a child." Raphael tried to stand a protest, but his lawyer held him back. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "the evidence presented shows a pattern of deliberate and documented abandonment. The document signed by you 3 years ago is clear. You formally relinquished parental responsibility." Dr. Caldwell and Jade exchanged a hopeful glance. On the other hand, the judge turned back to Jade. "Ms. Sterling demonstrated not only financial means but primarily emotional capacity to offer Clara a stable and loving home. The report from social worker Carla Jenkins is categorical in this regard." The judge paused again, consulting his papers. "But what impressed me most was something Clara told me at the end of our conversation. I asked her what she most wished for in the world, expecting to hear about toys, outings, or things typical of an 8-year-old. Clara looked at the judge with curiosity about what he would reveal. Clara told me that her greatest wish was for her mother, Erica, to be proud of her wherever she was, and that she thought her mother would be happy to know that she found someone who loves her like a true daughter." Now there were tears in many eyes in the courtroom. In light of all this, the judge straightened up. "I determine that permanent custody of the minor Clara Bellwether be granted to Ms. Jade Sterling, with all rights and duties inherent in legal guardianship." Clara threw herself into Jade's arms, who hugged her as if she would never let her go. "Furthermore," the judge continued, raising his voice above the murmurs in the room, "considering the pattern of abandonment and the attempts at emotional manipulation of the child, I determine that Mr. Raphael Hayes permanently lose all parental rights over Clara." Raphael stood up abruptly. "This is an injustice. She's my daughter." "Mr. Hayes," the judge's voice cut through the air like a blade, "paternity is not a right exercised when convenient. It is a responsibility assumed every day. You had 4 years to demonstrate that and chose not to do so." The judge brought down his gavel. "Case closed." The room erupted in murmurs. Journalists rushed to ask questions. Raphael argued heatedly with his lawyer. But for Jade and Clara, the world had shrunk to that hug. "We did it," Jade whispered in Clara's ear. "I knew it," the girl replied. "You promised you'd never leave me." Dr. Caldwell approached with the judgment papers. "Jade, you won. But there's one last important detail." "What is it?" "The judge authorized you to immediately begin the official adoption process. If you wish, Clara can take your name." Jade looked at Clara, who was still in her arms. "What do you think? Do you want to be Clara Sterling?" The girl's eyes lit up. "Can I keep Bellwether too? Because of my mom?" "Of course. Clara Bellwether Sterling." "I like that." Clara smiled for the first time in days. "Sounds like a real family." When they left the courthouse, Milo was waiting outside with a bouquet of yellow flowers. Erica's favorites. "To celebrate," he said, handing the flowers to Clara. "Thank you, Uncle Milo." Clara smelled the flowers. "My mom is seeing this, right?" "I'm sure she is," Jade replied, looking up at the blue sky of Willow Creek. "And she's very proud of you." That night, in the hotel room, Clara made a new drawing. This time it wasn't a yellow house with a garden. It was a long-haired woman holding hands with a small girl, both smiling. "That's us," Clara explained. "Our family." Jade taped the drawing to the wall and knew her life had changed forever. Not just because she had gained a daughter, but because she had rediscovered who she really was beneath all those years of ambition and professional success. She was someone capable of loving unconditionally. She was a mother. 5 years later, Clara, now 13, ran across the lawn of the Erica Bellwether Institute carrying a clipboard and a radiant smile. Her hair was longer, and she had grown, but her eyes still held that same precocious wisdom Jade had noticed on the first day. "Mom!" she shouted, waving to Jade, who was talking with a group of potential donors outside the main building. "Little Anna spoke today. She said thank you when I gave her a snack." Jade smiled, excusing herself from the visitors. Anna was a 6-year-old girl who had arrived at the Institute 3 months ago, traumatized and practically mute. Clara had made it her personal mission to help her open up again. "That's wonderful, honey," Jade said, hugging her daughter. "You're becoming an excellent mentor." "I learned from the best," Clara replied, winking. The Erica Bellwether Institute had grown far beyond Jade's initial dreams. What began as a temporary shelter had transformed into a complete complex, with a school, library, sports courts, a community garden, and a psychological support program that was a national reference. The idea arose 6 months after the court decision. Jade had sold her penthouse in New York and permanently stepped down from leadership of the cosmetic company, a decision that at the time seemed crazy to many, but which she never questioned. With the money from the sale and a portion of her savings, she bought a large property on the outskirts of Willow Creek and began to build something that would honor Erica's memory. "Ms. Sterling?" a shy voice called her. It was Miguel, 10 years old, one of the new residents. "Hi, Miguel. How was computer class today?" "Very good. I learned to make a drawing on the computer." He showed a printed sheet with a colorful drawing of a family. "It's for my birth mother, for when she gets better and can visit me." Miguel was at the institute while his mother was undergoing treatment for substance abuse. It was one of the most complex cases, but Jade had learned that hope and patience could work miracles. "It's beautiful, Miguel. I'm sure she'll love it." "Clara taught me that drawings made with love have special powers," the boy said, smiling. Jade looked at Clara, who was helping other children organize their school supplies. In 5 years, her daughter had become not only an excellent student, but a natural leader among the children at the institute. She had the gift of making every new child feel special and welcome. "Mom," Clara approached again. "Mr. Milo just arrived with the van. It's time for the presentation." Jade's heart quickened a little. Today was a special day, the official inauguration of the Clara Bellwether Center, a new wing of the institute specifically dedicated to teenagers transitioning out of the foster care system. The project had been funded by a Pittsburgh businessman who had been moved by their story and was named after Clara in recognition of her work with the children. "Nervous?" Milo asked when she approached the van that would take them to the event. "A little," Jade admitted. "I never thought I'd come this far." "Erica would be proud," he said, as he always did at important moments. Milo had become much more than a friend over the years. He was the uncle Clara never had, the tireless work partner who had helped build the institute, and for the past 2 years, the companion who had brought lightness and joy into Jade's life. The inauguration ceremony was moving. Local authorities, journalists, donors, and the children's families gathered to celebrate. When it was time for the speeches, Jade stood on the small stage set up in the courtyard, looking at the audience filled with smiling faces. 5 years ago, she began, I was a lost woman disguised as a successful executive. I lived in a luxurious penthouse, but my heart was empty. Then one day an 8-year-old girl asked me for a snack in a park and changed everything. She looked for Clara in the audience and smiled when she found her in the first row. Erica Bellwether, Clara's mother, always dreamed of being a teacher. She wanted to teach children not just school subjects but values, hope, love. She didn't live to fulfill that dream personally, but through the institute that bears her name, she is teaching dozens of children every day. There was emotional applause. The Clara Bellwether Center represents the next phase of that dream, because Clara taught me that when we care for a child with true love, they grow up and begin to care for others. It's a cycle of love that never ends. Jade paused, looking directly at Clara. My daughter once asked me if God planned our meeting. I said I didn't know, but if he did, it was the best plan of all. Because Clara not only gave me a family, she gave me a purpose. The applause was long and warm. When Jade stepped down from the stage, Clara ran to hug her. "I love you, Mom," the girl whispered. "I love you too, my daughter," Jade replied. Later, as the crowd dispersed and the sun began to set, Jade and Clara walked together through the Institute's gardens. They stopped in front of Erica's memorial, a small bronze sculpture of a woman reading to a child. "Do you think my mom Erica would approve of all this?" Clara asked. "I'm sure of it," Jade replied. She dreamed of changing the world one child at a time. Look how many children we're helping now. Clara smiled and placed fresh flowers at the foot of the memorial, a ritual they maintained every Friday. "You know what's coolest?" Clara said. "At first I thought you had saved me, but actually we saved each other." Jade felt tears of gratitude in her eyes. Clara was right. On the day a hungry girl asked a lost executive for a snack, 2 lives were transformed forever. "Shall we go home?" Clara asked. "Let's go," Jade replied, taking her daughter's hand. They walked towards the cozy house they had built together. Simple, but full of love. A house where the most common sound was the laughter of children, where the kitchen always smelled of creamy cheese rice, and where every room had drawings on the walls made by small hands full of hope. Jade looked back one last time, seeing the Institute's lights coming on in the twilight. Tomorrow, dozens of children would wake up in safe beds, with full stomachs and hearts full of possibilities. And it all began with a simple request. "Miss, can you buy me something to eat?" Sometimes the greatest journeys begin with the smallest steps, and the most beautiful families are those we choose to build, one day at a time, with patience, dedication, and a lot of love.